In the grand halls of Tudor England, where power shifted like the wind and secrets could kill, one woman stood at the center of it all, Anne Boleyn. Not just a queen, not just a mistress turned monarch, but a woman whose knowledge, ambition, and refusal to play by the rules would lead her to the scaffold. This is not the tale of a helpless victim. This is the story of a queen who may have known too much. Before Anne Boleyn ever wore a crown, she was already causing waves in the royal court. Educated in the Netherlands and France, she was witty, sharp-tongued, and politically astute, traits not typically welcomed in women of the time, let alone in those vying for a throne. When she caught the eye of King Henry VIII, it wasn't her beauty alone that entranced him. It was her mind. Anne was no passive consort. She debated, she resisted, she played the long game. While others might have been content as royal mistresses, Anne wanted more. She wanted to be Queen of England, and she got it. But her rise was paved with blood and scandal. For Henry to marry Anne, he had to break with the Catholic Church, declare his first marriage to Catherine of Aragon void, and tear apart centuries of religious tradition. That kind of power play makes enemies, and Anne inherited every single one. The nobles who backed Catherine, the clerics who resisted the break with Rome, and even the common people who whispered her name like a curse, they all watched and waited for Anne to fall. Yet for a brief moment, she shone. As queen, Anne was a fierce patron of reformist ideas. She supported the spread of Protestant texts, protected radical thinkers, and wasn't shy about using her influence. But she also had enemies within her own home. The court was a nest of vipers, where a smile could hide a dagger and alliances shifted by the hour. Anne, with her keen political instincts, knew things. Too many things. She knew which noblemen whispered treason in the shadows, which advisors questioned the king's sanity, and perhaps most dangerously, which secrets Henry himself preferred buried. It's said that Anne kept letters, cryptic notes, names, correspondences, evidence that could ruin reputations or bring about executions. She may have even had knowledge of Henry's own legitimacy being questioned. In a court where knowledge was power and power meant survival, Anne walked a dangerous tightrope. But the very intellect that lifted her up made her a threat. A woman who thinks like a man, who wields secrets like weapons? That was intolerable in a kingdom built for male ambition. Then came the fatal blow. Anne failed to deliver what Henry most desperately wanted, a male heir. Their daughter Elizabeth would later become one of the greatest monarchs England ever knew. But in 1536, she was merely a disappointment to a king obsessed with securing his legacy. And so the wind shifted. Henry's wandering eye settled on Jane Seymour, and suddenly Anne became disposable. But a queen could not simply be cast aside. She had to be destroyed, and so a brutal plot was set in motion. Anne was accused of adultery with multiple men, some of them close friends, even her own brother. The charges were flimsy, the evidence laughable, but the trial was swift and merciless. Behind the spectacle lay something darker: fear. Fear of what Anne might reveal. Her execution wasn't just about betrayal or infertility, it was about silence. Dead queens tell no tales. On May 19, 1536, Anne Boleyn was led to the scaffold in the Tower of London. She wore a crimson robe, the color of martyrdom. With dignity, she addressed the crowd, praising the king who had condemned her. Her final words were controlled, even gracious. And then, with one clean stroke from a French executioner's sword, the queen who knew too much was gone. But Anne's story didn't end with her death. Her daughter Elizabeth I would go on to reign for 45 years, ushering in a golden age of English history. The secrets Anne carried, the reformist ideas she championed, the political savvy she embodied, lived on in her child. And so, the woman once feared for knowing too much became the mother of a queen who would know even more. History often paints Anne Boleyn as either a seductress or a martyr, but the truth is far more complex. She was a woman ahead of her time, navigating a brutal game of thrones with intelligence and courage. In the end, she was punished not just for her failures, but for her potential, for daring to think, to challenge, to hold power, and yes, perhaps, for knowing too much.